And shortly after the swearing-in ceremony at the presidential villa, Minister of FCT Nyesom Wike addressed the press at the ministry where he vowed to sanitize and secure the country's capital.
You don't like those who will step on toes. I will step on toes because you cannot be claiming FCT is not working. When you have not done your own part, do your own part, then be able to say, look, of all the money we have been paying, what are they using it in FCT? That is then when you have the border to talk, not when you have not fulfilled your own obligation. And two, all those agents collecting revenue, we have to sit down. I have to look at everything. The revenue leakages, I will stop it. I will stop it. Because we need money to build infrastructure in FCT. We need to bring the parks back.
And former governor of Osun State, Gboyega Oyetola, is one of the first ministers to assume office. He was received by the permanent secretary, who handed over a document brief to the minister. For Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, he also resumed office, where he met with senior officials at the ministry. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, assured that he will work towards ensuring the temporary inconveniences occasioned by the removal of fuel subsidy and exchange rate unification are also alleviated. Mr. Edun spoke shortly after assuming office at the Ministry of Finance. He says there is need to deliver on set targets, as the president already set the ball rolling through policy measures. The new Ministers of Information and National Orientation, Art, Culture and Creative Economy, as well as Minister of Tourism, arrived at the National Press Center at the Radio House Abuja today to assume the new assignment. Well, just a day before the swearing-in, President Bola Tinubu had ordered the redeployment of former Governor of Osun State, Adeboyega Oyetola, from the Ministry of Transportation to the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. The president also redeployed Abubakar Momo from the Ministry of Youth to the Ministry of Niger Delta Development. Both ministers of state in the oil and gas sector are now domiciled in the Ministry of Petroleum Resources with the following designations. Heineken Lopobiri is the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources in charge of oil. Peripe Ekpo is Minister of State Petroleum Resources in charge of gas. The president also approved the renaming of the Ministry of Environment and Ecological Management as the Ministry of Environment. Former Minister of Works Adeshaye Ogunlewe and legal practitioner Jiti Ogunye join me on the program via Zoom for more on this development. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. The swearing-in of the ministers is coming 84 days into President Tinubu's administration, approximately 3 months. Senator Ogunlewe, let me begin with you. What do you make of this time frame relative to the campaign promise of hitting the ground running?
Well, there's been a lot of restructuring. About 12 new ministries were created. A lot of thinking, a lot of planning must have gone into it. So, and it is worth it. Let us see what they can do, how they can perform. Because there are critical areas that have now been designated as ministry, like gas, like steel, like communication, innovation, and digital economy. These are critical areas of marine and blue economy. You have now to separate all the ministries, make sure there's appropriate redeployment of appropriate staffs. So it is not too late. Definitely, it is worth our while for them to do it properly, think about it properly, so that they can achieve maximum for the benefit of the country.
Mr. Ogunye, we saw a few reshuffling and change of ministry name a day to the swearing-in. We probably now understand why the portfolios were not assigned to the names when they were initially sent to the Senate. What do you make of this?
Well, the ideal thing is for, thanks for inviting me. The ideal thing is for ministers to be designated for certain political offices when they are being screened. In other words, it's better to screen ministers, minister designates, against the portfolios to which they will be assigned. These are the best international practices. This auditing that we celebrate is not the best. You don't examine or screen people at large. You don't screen people in the dark. I'm speaking literally now. Both the person being screened and those who are screening do not know for which offices they are screening those who are appearing before them. And so it's like a theater. This is not what happens in the United States and elsewhere. And I think that this started with President Olusegun Obasanjo. Unfortunately, that legacy has been built upon from time to time. I had thought while the campaign was going on that things would be done differently. But overall, now that we've had these eminent Nigerians assigned to their portfolios, we hope that they will hit the ground running.
Talking about hitting the ground running, Mr. Ogunye, these new ministers now have to tackle the problems of sluggish growth, a weak currency, high inflation, and of course, widespread insecurity. How challenging is it to be a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria today?
Very challenging and daunting. For those, and we must assume, if we are going to be charitable, we must assume that those who have been appointed are going to these offices to serve. For those who are serious-minded, and there's no reason we should not assume that they're serious-minded, who are going to occupy these offices, the task is very challenging. And that's why I would have wished, for example, that this minister had come earlier. A lot of
We'll have to get back to Mr. Ogunye in the course of this conversation. But let me quickly hear from Senator Ogunlewe. Let's look at the fact that, for instance, there's yet no portfolio for the senior minister of petroleum resources. And many are already suggesting that perhaps we'll see the president oversee that ministry the same way it happened with President Obasanjo and I think President Muhammadu Buhari. You were a minister at the time. How effective do you think that has been in the past cases where we've seen this happen?
I don't think that tradition should be sustained or continued, if you ask me. That you have a minister of state for petroleum and then the president will be superintendent. There's nothing so special about petroleum resources except that that's where our major resources come from. Nigeria, until very recently, when there was a lot of pillage in that sector, used to be a mono economy, fired by petrodollar. When the former president came to power, I thought that would make himself the Minister of Defense because that was his forte. We have Boko Haram to deal with and all that. But unfortunately, it was the Ministry of Petroleum that also zeroed in on, like it's being done now. So I was saying before now that I thought that if the minister had come earlier, perhaps they would have held the government a very critical moment. For example, when the labor movement was engaged with government in discussion so early, I was wishing that, I wish that there was a minister of labor to help help the government navigate the process. So since there was no minister of labor on that occasion, so they had to deal with the presidency that matter. And so also it's the issue of the economy. It's good now that we have a coordinating minister of the economy. The economy is something that this government has to tackle with all seriousness. So in sum, I wish them well, and I hope that they work for Nigeria. Nigerians deserve to be worked for.
Absolutely. Let me bring in distinguished in very quickly. Senator Ogunse, you were Minister of Works under the Obasanjo administration, and he, I think, also doubled as Minister of Petroleum. How did that pan out? I mean, is that something you would suggest this administration should follow?
I think it's a fallout from the military administration, where they play a lot of premium on the Ministry of Petroleum as a determining factor for the growth of the economy. Probably the president would like to have a direct influence on what is going on in that sector. I don't know, but that has never been.
Did it work? Would you say it was successful? Because we've seen it under the Obasanjo and also Buhari administration.
The MD of the NNPC was very, very active. And because of that, one will not notice any form of gap, whether the president was the minister or not, because majority of the job were being done by the MD of NNPC. So he's just a coordinator, or maybe to be on top of whatever they are doing. But majority of the job will be done by the MD of NNPC.
So there wasn't much of reshuffling of the cabinet in the previous administration, Senator. Where should the line be drawn between the president's loyalty to his ministers and also their performance in office? How often should that be reviewed?
It depends on the content of the assignment of ministerial responsibility and the policy of the party, the manifesto of the party. What the party wants to achieve should be itemized thoroughly and given to the minister to execute. But where you allow a minister to formulate the policy for you, it leads to destruction of the national plan. So once you have a very robust national plan, which is very, very important, then the minister will key into whatever is highlighted in the national plan. So it will be easier for the president to monitor them, to determine whether they are performing well or not. But where you don't give a minister a task, like identify the responsibility, what is achievable first year, second year, third year, so that he will be guided.
So,
and he will perform to your own dictation. If you allow him to determine whatever he wants to do,
yes,
then you may not be able to, to monitor him properly.
I hear you, distinguished. Let me hear Mr. Ogunye's thoughts on this, because some of these ministers, Mr. Ogunye, are two-time governors of their states. Some of them even aspired to become president. How easy will it be to have these individuals aligned to a particular vision when they're probably coming on board with a lot of original ideas and things they've tried out themselves in their respective states?
Well, what you didn't say is that they're also coming on board with a lot of hubris and ego. Some of them are the executive themselves, and so they may tend to then function independently. Well, initiative is good. Thinking out of the box is good. But in the presidential system of government, the president is the boss. He's the one that won the election. He's the one that has the mandate. It is not going to be productive and healthy and progressive for a president to just leave his ministers to formulate policies on their own, ask around for those who have ideas and then start implementing them. I agree completely with Senator Ogunlewe that the TOR, terms of reference, timelines, areas of responsibilities, all these things must be well defined and tasks must be assigned. Because ministers, if you look at section 148 of the Constitution, are to help the president to discharge his function. They are to help him to carry on his mandate. And so they are not the ones to spoon feed him with ideas on how things should be done. They are programs and policies of the political party, APC in this instance. So the ministers, regardless of their background, are supposed to key in, because when the next election comes, what the people will ask is that these were your manifestos. What did you do with them? And so on and so forth. And so I expect them to work in unison. I expect this president to be more accessible to his ministers. The last time the president was saying, and he was even making a boast of it, that he was not to be seen all the time. So if the chief of staffs stated that he should not be seen, so be it. How do you have a president that his minister cannot access for 6 months? Some of them came out, they will be saying it in closed sets that they couldn't access the president. So it's not an imperial presidency.
This president has promised an open door policy. Perhaps it's something we can count on, Mr.
That's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making. So early, this president has been meeting with his party people. He has been assessing people, have been meeting. That's how it should be. If you want to govern, you want to be a president. You can't be a president and say you are not a politician, you are not accessible. You sit down somewhere, and then your people cannot see you. They should be able to discuss with you and then, run the machinery of government in such a way that people who have value for entrusting them with.
I hear you, Mr. Ogunye. We have just about 3 more minutes to go. Distinguished, let me get your thoughts on the number. We have some 45 ministers now. It was 36 in 2015. Your former principal even reviewed his downwards from 40, I think, in his second term in office. Do you think we need more ministers?
Whatever the number, what is important is the attitude and position of members of the National Assembly in the area of appropriation. No matter how brilliant a minister is or the policy of the president is, if it is the National Assembly member refuse to key into it and they start to distort and add additional projects to the budget. They pad the budget, they add unnecessary, projects to the budget. They distort the budget to the extent that when you come back to the ministry, you will find so many sort of, new projects that were not originated by the ministry. So what can the minister do? And it is the money provided under the Appropriation Act that will determine the performance of the minister. So the president must, from the beginning, appeal to members of the Assembly. If you have any project, take it to the ministry so that it will be incorporated into the budget of each ministry.
Indeed.
Don't now introduce new projects at the National Assembly level that will distort the plan of each of the ministry. It's a very critical situation. Very, very bad. Unless it is nipped in the bud, we will not be able to grow as a nation because this distortion is heavy.
I hear you, distinguished.
You can see some ministers.
Indeed.
They will say, all these projects that are in my budget, I don't know anything about them.
It's a good place to leave it. Former Minister of Works, Senator Adeshaye Ogunlewe, thank you so much for joining us. Duty Ogunye, lawyer and human rights activist. Thank you so much for your contribution on the show today.
It's my pleasure.
Well, we now have substantive ministers. Their time has started, and Nigerians are watching closely. Mr. President earlier today did say that their obligation is to return public faith in government so that the people can once again believe in government. And we're looking forward to see how they'll be able to achieve this in the coming days and coming month. That's our show today. There's a repeat at midnight. And